we're streaming. We've got 6 of us. The other one is, I'm sure, still in school. So I'm going to start the special select board meeting of November 6th to call it to order. And the first item is approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Any amendments to the agenda today? All in favor of approving the agenda as drafted, signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Can you guys hear us? We're frozen.
No?
For hot, Andy? Audio's on.
Can you hear us, Farhad?
Can you hear me now? For hot, if you're muted.
See? I'm just suggest
But
this one off.
hear him though.
You're there.
Just do all
Could
this
you
goofy stuff at
tell
once.
us you can hear us?
He's talking.
We can.
Video froze. Boy. Hello there. So I'm going to put you and Farhad on speaker through my phone, and that way you can participate, and we will fix this afterwards. Okay. Well, we'll stick with it as long as we can. All right. Okay. Hang on. Alrighty, guys. Farhad, Andy, you're both through my phone on speaker, and I'm gonna do my best. I'm gonna mute. Farhad, can you hear me? Yeah. And Andy, you can hear me? Yeah. Okie dokie. So we'll do our best to speak loudly, and you're present.
Okay, we've just gone through approval of the agenda. Next is citizen comments. Are you here for a comment? No.
I'll introduce Sarah. So she's a Middlebury senior that is doing an internship with us. Was introduced from David Hamilton from the DRB. But so we'll ready to be here. She said she'd
All
come on
right.
down. Yeah.
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
So then I'll turn it over to Jen and Zeke to tell us what we're here for.
You want to start, or you want me to set the table?
Tough table.
All right, Andy and Farhad, can you hear me okay if I talk this loud? Okay. So we had originally had a closing date for this project, and what we are closing on is the construction finance loan to build the first 3 phases of infrastructure and the first 45 homes. So that was scheduled for the 12th. We're now so that's next Tuesday. We bumped it back to the 19th. We are at the bottom of the funnel of 2 years worth of work needing to get papered. And so that's one of the reasons why we're here in a special session today. The pieces that we have collectively done as a town, we have, the DRB has gone through sketch, preliminary, and final, approved final plat, which gave us the opportunity to apply for our zoning permits and our work in the right-of-way permit, which Jen and Emily have reviewed and signed off on. We've worked with you all on the select board to approve 4 different funding sources. I'm saying 4. One is your revolving loan fund that you approved. That's about a $239,000 total award that is forgiven when we dedicate the roads back to you. So that'll be going towards building the town roads. We received a $1 million community development block grant from the Vermont Community Development Program, which is part of the Agency of Commerce and Community Development. We call that a CDBG award. That's $1 million towards building this infrastructure. There is a $175,000 Community Partnerships Award, which is through a different division of ACCD. That's a pre-development expense that Jen and I and Tom are working on drawing on right now. And then there is a Community Recovery and Revitalization Plan, CRRP, award of $750,000 to build a different subset of infrastructure. That was an award through the town that you all approved the application for. So all of these funding sources need to be papered and final at our closing. I won't go into how each one is administered. Jen and I have gotten Tom up to speed since we did all this with Kathleen over the last 2 years. But suffice to say, they all have different mechanisms through which they flow through the town to the development. Separate from all of that is the grant agreement that we negotiated for a while.
The development agreement?
Excuse me, the development agreement that we negotiated with you all for a while that outlines our responsibilities to you, the town, in building the town infrastructure and in phasing the project, some off-site infrastructure contributions, and then also your commitments and expectations for us that you will take the roads and that we're allowed to build in certain phasing. So the main task for tonight, and there was an extra task that we're cutting off that I'll do at the end, but the main task for tonight is that we're coming with 2 changes to that development agreement. The first is all of those funds that flow through get papered in different ways from the town to here. The town's lawyer, our lawyer, and the Agency of Commerce and Community Development think that the best way of flowing one of those funds through is articulating some of this in the development agreement. And so the first 6 sections of the First Amendment to Development Agreement, which is in your packet, talk about how, the section 1 through 3, the recitals 1 through 6, talk about how the CRRP fund, the Community Recovery and Revitalization Plan funds, will flow through to this project, how Emily's office and Jen's office will sign off on our progress before we make collective requisitions to ACCD. I'll stop and just pause there because that's the first piece. This is a new program. It's an ARPA-funded program. The Department of Economic Development is managing this one. They didn't really have their hands around how they were going to do housing projects. We've been walking through this with them, but I think this is a really a good way of not needing a sub-grant agreement like we do in some of the other programs.
The lawyers have all signed off on this. Ben's has reviewed it?
No, we're actually,
Our lawyer that we're using on this?
yep, when you say all of this, do you mean the portion that he's discussing right now?
The CRRP
We're
piece.
taking it one step at a time.
Yep, just making sure I'm following you, so I answer you correctly. So that piece of the First Amendment to Development Agreement, the attorney has looked at, yep.
Anybody have any questions on that?
So, in number 2, has the town accepted the grant agreement and its conditions, or is that yet to be drafted?
Yes, no, the town has reviewed that grant agreement. We have that grant agreement. That grant agreement's signed. Yeah. Yeah.
We trust our town staff has not found anything too onerous in that?
Yeah, and David has reviewed it.
Okay. The only other thing, this is between, the town and Summit Development LLC, and these other instruments, an irrevocable dedication thing. I have a couple of comments on that.
Yep, not there yet, but
Okay.
but if you wouldn't mind holding your fire on those. The section 4, so I'll move on to section 4 of the First Amendment to the Development Agreement, which talks about our phasing, and this is something I've discussed with Jen and Emily. We are asking the way the development agreement works, I won't take for granted that you remember it all. We talk about phases and what our requirements are once we start a phase and how we end it, and then when you'll take that over, you being the town, right? And so as soon as we start to build one structure in a new phase, it triggers a lot of responsibilities to build out that entire phase. We're asking for one exception to that for the beginning of phase B1, which is for the purpose of building a model unit in that first unit as you turn in. There's a exhibit B attached to this as well that just sort of redlines around the one structure we're proposing to build. It will function as if a driveway is being built in, and all the town infrastructure pieces will be stubbed out. Without this exception, we would be required to build the entire loop before we could get a certificate of occupancy for this unit, which we would need to do before we could staff it and have the toilets flush and all of that, right? So what we're asking for is an exception, this highlighted and bolded language in the First Amendment to just amend the Phase B1 to allow us to do that first and get a CO on it before all of the obligations of Phase B1.
Sounds good.
So you would put one of the units here in phase B1 up before, and that would be your display unit as you're pre-selling and doing all the pricing to finish
Yeah.
that whole.
Yeah.
Okay, any questions on that part of the request? Okay, next.
Okay, so that's the changes to the development agreement. So those are the two things that need to be addressed in the development agreement. And this is, I don't know if we've got a drafted resolution on that, if you want to do it at the end, but that's the one that, you guys will need to obviously all sign off on this amendment as drafted.
Do you want us to do these motions as you?
Let's do them as we go through.
Up to you
Fred.
guys.
Just ask Jen, that's the development agreement, the changes, and that's, you're good with that too?
Mhm.
Okay, let's take up the first motion then.
I move to approve the First Amendment to the development agreement, subject to approval by town council, and authorize interim town manager to execute this on behalf of the town.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Any comments or questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. So I think that was Farhad. It looks like we've lost Andy.
He's there, he just walked away.
Okay,
Person moving in the background there.
all right, so, but we have a quorum, so that's approved. Well,
There's Andy.
I don't know if you heard what we were doing, Andy? I guess not. Oh, we're moving
You might not realize
on.
this
Okay,
camera's still
next.
on. Let's go on to the irrevocable offers of dedication. So, one of the things we need at this closing is to have, we will sign the irrevocable offers of dedication. This is for the town roads, the right-of-way. It's a 60-foot wide right-of-way on the major roads through the community, as well as some easements where there will be water and sewer mains that will become town property, but will be underground, underneath HOA-owned property, so those easements. So those are that's the sort of subset of items that are gonna be dedicated to the town when you accept them, and the terms of acceptance are laid out in the development agreement. The way mechanically this is gonna work, and none of us have our attorneys with us here, but I think we're all in agreement, or the attorneys at least are all in agreement, is we draft we sign these, the town signs them to accept them, and then puts them in a filing cabinet, and it's not effectuated until you record it. And you don't record it, the actual exchange of ownership, until DPW, zoning, have signed off that we built to plans and specs as we promised. And so you hold these essentially in escrow, completely executed, and then record them at that time of acceptance. That's the third step, is the recording, and that's when the actual transfer of possession occurs.
And I'll add something to that. Having spoken to our attorney, there's an actual resolution that you guys will need to pass. So it'll come back to the select board. You'll be able to, you'll be able to confirm with Emily, inspector, you know, whoever we have, that the roads meet the town road spec, then you'll pass a resolution for it.
Okay.
That's what he told me today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this, just for your banks, lets them know that we're committed to taking those over, and you're not gonna be
Right.
liable for maintenance of those long-term.
Right. And everything that's recorded here is this, the property description is recorded when we take ownership from the college at this closing. And that property description needs to match this property description in the IOD, the irrevocable offers of dedication, to the extent it's property that we're dedicating over. So it's like the bank and all the underwriters wanna see that all of this matches, that the lawyers have reviewed it, that we reviewed it, that it's part of our collective deal, and that those are done and sealed and signed and set aside until you, in your possession, decide to record them. So that power is still in you, and you're, as Jen said, it'll
So
come
you
back
decide
to
to
you to
accept
do
them,
it.
accept the roads.
Right.
Yeah.
But it'll be part of our closing binder, right, that you guys have in your possession a fully executed set of these irrevocable offers of dedication.
Yeah.
And the acceptance will happen in phases, like you mentioned, it's right in the development agreement.
Yep.
I reread it today, it's at the bottom of page 3 in the development agreement, that at the completion of the construction of each phase of public infrastructure, the developer will notify the town, provide as-built plans, we've got 20 days for this, 30 days for that, like, it's all outlined, and we would do it phase by phase. Just in case, heaven forbid, there was a future phase that didn't happen, you know, we would have
Yeah.
accepted just the roads that were done,
Yep.
Questions on this?
if that adds anything.
It's a little, ordinarily, or maybe just as we used to be in the old days, that you build them, we'd receive the inspection reports and favorable recommendations from the staff, and then we would dedicate. And it's kind of like accepting service or delivery of a fire truck, signing that we were accepting it even before it's built. It's a little weird. I guess so that's my only.
I do think things have changed in the banking world.
So in the recitals here of this irrevocable offer, number 3, owner plans to dedicate to Middlebury all the public roadways. I don't think all is the right word in there, because there's some of them
David
that
still
are
reviewing
private,
these?
right?
Yep.
And what you might just do, because some of this is surplusage, it really isn't necessary, I would just comment that if you skipped over number 3 and went to number 4 and say, just pursuant to the development agreement dated September 18, and amendments, the owner proposes to dedicate, you know. There isn't any reference to the development, original foundation development agreement in this. And you know, you could use that as a way to link. And and my other comment is on section 2, it says the owner agrees that it can be accepted or rejected in part at any time. From what you described, I don't know how, and how that would make the financing people happy if they want, what they want to do is lock in that the town's going to accept this.
But no town is gonna lock in, right, and that's your concern. No town is gonna say, like, if we don't
Well,
deliver
so-
what we say we.
So. Okay.
Yep. I
Lawyers.
share the
Lawyers.
mind-bending nature of it, but I think
Yeah.
it is
I'm
the,
okay.
yeah.
I'm
Both
okay.
sets of lawyers have already agreed and approved this language, so I don't think we're in a position where we can adjust it, right?
David is, your attorney is taking one more crack at it, so what I would say is that this is a substantially complete version, you know, and if you wanted to include the sort of subject to
There's a lot of blanks.
town council. Yeah, there's a lot of blanks because I don't think, as of when this was sent to you a week ago, 5 days ago, I don't think the clerk had actually quite yet recorded the final plat.
Okay.
And
I see
that
it.
some
I got-
takes
okay.
time, so we don't have the page and book references and all that, so that'll need to get filled in, right? But we're sort of down to the wire here of everything coming in.
Yeah, but
now
I
or
don't
day
think
by
we're
day.
at the point where we
No,
can.
no,
Yeah.
When it was first described to me by Jen that we're gonna have a special meeting to, you know, receive dedication of the roads, I'm like, what? So I'm in an earlier age, forgive me.
No.
I'm not, I'm having
worries.
problems, I understand it now.
Yep,
Yeah, no, it's the wording in the resolution here that you're authorizing Tom Hanley to execute those IODs once they've been finalized by the town attorney.
and it's one of those things we'll just need between now and our closing. It's gonna be something we're slotting into the closing packet next week. which was the urgency.
All right. So we'll be ready for,
I'm ready if you're ready, Fred.
okay, I move to approve the irrevocable offers of dedication from Stonecrop Development LLC for infrastructure to be constructed in the planned Stonecrop Meadows Housing Development Project, subject to review and final approval by the town's attorney. And I further authorize that, move that we further authorize interim town manager to execute the irrevocable offers of dedication on behalf of the town.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other comments or questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 I said aye, and Andy said yes. And
Yes, and I heard Farhad, so. Okay.
The third piece here is the Community Development Block Grant, CDBG. This one is, when we talk about everything coming together at the bottom of the funnel here right before closing, we needed to lock in pricing, and so we were waiting on the pricing set I was talking about before we finalized the numbers in that grant agreement, and so that went back to VCDP, the Vermont Community Development Program that administered this last Thursday, and they have committed to turning around the grant agreement by the 12th. And so we haven't seen it yet. And so this we actually do have to punt on. Hopefully you guys can slot me in on to your regular scheduled meeting next week, specifically just for this. And this is sort of a live update as we go here. This does include a sub-grant agreement that goes from, so the Agency of Commerce and Community Development, Vermont Community Development Program, grants this HUD money to the town of Middlebury. The town of Middlebury sub-grants this to a certified community based development organization, which in our instance is Ascend Housing Allies, which is our affiliated nonprofit that does supportive services work and development work. You've heard that name before. Then what happens is the nonprofit loans those proceeds to the developer, which is us, Stonecrop Development LLC. All of that gets papered. This is our third community development block grant in the last 4 years. The papering is all exactly the same. The only thing that differs project to project is that grant agreement between the Vermont Community Development Program and the town of Middlebury, and then that language will dictate a little bit that's in the sub-grant agreement between the town of Middlebury and Ascend Housing Allies. All of that paper is done and been reviewed by David.
No, because there's no grant agreement yet.
Except for the grant agreement.
But then he'll still need some time to take all these
To
other
flow it
documents
through.
and, exactly.
Correct,
yeah.
correct. I think the flowing through will be a light lift,
Mm-hmm.
because it's really just filling in blanks from the language that comes into that grant agreement. But alas, there's a pinch point and a critical path on all of these deals. And for us right now, it's this grant agreement from the Vermont Community Development Program. So the third motion here, we're not ready for tonight. And I've asked that one gets, I'm going to stay on the Agency of Commerce and Community Development to get us that with enough notice for your regularly scheduled Tuesday meeting, which would still allow us to stick to our closing schedule and get this executed.
So, Zeke, we have our draft agenda out. We have a placeholder number 5. You'd come in right after citizen comments. If you can get it all to us before then, we'll address it on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Okay?
It would essentially, it's gonna require a version of that getting over to your attorney by the end of this week. And so we'll know by end of day Friday whether this is gonna fall into place. That will give me an added push for VCDP, which is always helpful.
So I have only one question on this is, all our other agreements are with Summit Development LLC, and these are with Stonecrop LLC. I don't need to know the relationship, but I want the staff to tell me that they're comfortable that, our agreements are with one entity, the money's going to some other entity. This is okay.
So I'll answer that if you're willing, and then you guys could say whether you're okay with it.
Yeah,
But
fine.
the date of closing, the the entity that is going to buy the land from the college, hire a builder, and flow through all these funds will be the master developer in this case. And the master developer is an entity, Stonecrop Development, LLC. Stonecrop Development, single purpose master developer for this community. Summit Development is our ongoing company that does development work. We have a payroll, we have, you know, it's what you would expect. So all the pre-development work we do up to that date, up to that closing, is through Summit Development. But as soon as we hit the closing, we take down the land, we enter into construction contracts. From that point forward, it's all Stonecrop. So any of the agreements, we're still committing as Summit Development, as the umbrella entity, everything we're committing through the development agreement. So it's not like the development agreement needs to be assigned, but there are other contracts that we are assigning to Stonecrop Development. But I think the moment of closing is the moment that Stonecrop Development exists, that it now owns the land, it signs contracts with contractors, and it gets the work going. It's not a legal fiction, it's a legal reality, but the ownership is all my partner and I, all the people doing all the work, it's all the same. But that's how we structure all of these. I hope that was a
Very
good
comfortable
enough
with
explanation of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, our attorney and his team of attorneys at Gravel and Shea are working really hard at double checking all that stuff back
Get a
and forth.
grant for their expenses?
That was my next question. I'm curious what the cost to the town is on all the legal fees and the additional, like, costs for, grant administration.
I
Like,
asked that question to, well, I don't know about grant administration, I don't track my time that much, but, I asked, our attorney about that, and he said that there's a little chunk of change in the, CDBG agreement for
Mhm.
attorney's fees.
Ours?
And, yeah, and then he's probably not gonna spend that much.
Mm-hmm.
good,
Oh, really?
okay.
Can there be money for inspection?
Well, no, never happy, no, I don't know, I can ask that question.
Well,
Well,
Okay.
that's good to hear. I think from a finance perspective and like keeping paperwork and all these grant agreements and processing, you know, it does add some burden to the town, so. I don't know how much, but audit purposes and all that stuff, so.
I think we are setting ourselves up well for a great case study to the legislature this year on the administrative burden on towns and developers for administering these programs. I think the especially frustrating, I mean, I'm on my soapbox here for a second, and I'll get off it really quickly, but if you'll indulge me.
you're entitled.
The legislature had all of this ARPA money, and it gave little pockets of all this ARPA money to different divisions of the Agency of Commerce and Community Development to spend those as they see fit. And so taken in the aggregate, we have a significant amount of money to build a significant amount of future town-owned infrastructure that is then the catalyst for a brand new neighborhood here, right? And for us to leverage a huge chunk of the state's scarce resources for what is relatively small town of Middlebury, right? If you did the investment by the state per person and the impact on the grand list, it's great. But in the moment, we have 3 grant awards, and I'm dealing with 3 different administrators and decision makers and 3 different divisions within the Agency of Commerce and Community Development to administer 3 programs, all of which have the same template grant agreement. And it has been wildly, and they've each come to different decisions on how they do it. And some of them are shooting from the hip, and some of them, like VCDP, have been doing this for years. And so it may be moot because we're never going to have another flow of funds like ARPA was. And so this is just the pill we swallow in order to get a neighborhood like this going. But
Yeah.
there's a big conversation to be had about the administrative burden on the town. And I know the League of Cities and Towns, maybe Kathleen has a good look into it from this project, but it's a conversation that we all should be having together. All right, off my soapbox.
I think we all agree with you.
Yeah.
We see it in other areas.
Emily, are you happy with this? Good.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Then, any select board member concerns?
Thank you.
I'd like to bring up the fact that we need to change our select board date.
Yes, and we're gonna talk about it on the 12th. Talking about for the 19th?
Is that okay to do it 1 week before? Change the date 1 week before?
We can talk about it now if you guys wanna talk about it.
Well, that just gives everybody 1 week a warning.
Yeah.
We'll already be in the process of getting ready for the next
It
week.
was on our draft agenda for the 12th, but we can easily deal with it now.
That's what I had
Are you
recommended.
guys okay with the?
I will not be here on the 19th.
You will not be here on the 19th.
Well,
We have two really important contracts to award that I was planning on doing on the 26th because they allocate ARPA funding. And so they have to get awarded, they have to be signed by the contractor by the end of December.
Bad
Okay,
planning.
You need us to push and stay on the 26th. It would not be ready for the 19th.
Either that or do another emergency
No,
session.
no, if we're gonna have to
It's
do
just,
it.
it's one for Middlebury North and one for the Seminary Street, wastewater lining project related to this project.
Okay?
I'm available
So,
either time, both times.
Is
So-
anybody, who's, I know you.
I'll
just
zoom
got-
in. I'll zoom in. I'm just gonna be with my grandson,
It's
so.
just the week of Thanksgiving, a lot of times we
Yep.
move it out of that, but if we need it, the week of Thanksgiving, as long as we can get a quorum, I can be there.
I can be there on our regular scheduled time, yes.
I'll be there, but it'll
Okay.
be on Zoom.
All right, we're
What-
gonna keep it
is
as
Andy-
is.
Andy, are you raising your hand or saying goodbye?
He say goodbye.
Oh,
But he did say earlier he wasn't sure. Body language. I think he said he wasn't sure about that date.
Okay,
Farhan's still there.
how about hello, Farhad.
Farhad, how does that work for you for the 19th or the 26th? Do you have any difficulty with either of those dates?
I'm fine with either one of them.
Okay, we'll leave it the 26th, since we have some critical business to conduct on that day.
We're not meeting on the 19th.
What?
We're not meeting on the 19th.
We're not meeting
No,
on the
no, no.
19th. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
so moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Meeting is adjourned.